tried to get out, and the time was now.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another exciting episode of Sitting Down with Stand-Ups. I am one of your co-hosts, Justin Sakarica. As always, we have the Bean behind the scene, Daryl Bean, touching all the buttons and connecting all the wires and doing all that shit. Elena Gonzalez has been fired because she fucking sucks. She will never be back here again. Obviously, I am joking. Filling in today is the very sharp Greg. Sharp, Greg, how the hell are you doing, man?
Good, man. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic.
Really
Long time no see. Yeah, well, I mean, for those of you who don't know, Greg was on an episode back in November. He's been trapped down here ever since. And we are finally going to unchain him so he can help host for an episode or two. So don't get too comfortable, man.
Well, I might get a little comfortable. We'll see if Elena wants to come back after I ruin the show.
Gotcha. No, but seriously, man, it's great to have you back on, man. What's been up, man?
I've been just a lot of shows, man. A lot of shows. Like March was like the busiest month I've ever had.
Really?
Yeah. So I think I did like 16, 18 shows in March, which is a lot for me.
Yeah, that's.
And I don't know, just doing as many mics as I can. I've been over at the Ann Arbor Comedy Showcase quite a bit, so I had a show there last night, did a guest spot.
Ah, nice. How was that?
Went okay.
Went okay?
Went all right. Yeah, I usually do pretty well in that room. That's a really good place to perform. Small room, my kind of crowd. So
Yeah.
They usually like me.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy because the more I've been doing comedy, some of the more seasoned comedians have always told me they prefer more of an intimate room as opposed to a huge, theater space. And I think it's because maybe they can connect with the audience better. What do you think?
That's the way it is for me, especially in that room where everybody's like, they put you right on top of the stage.
Yeah.
And the stage is small and everybody's sort of close to you. But in this scene, we have like a wide variety of rooms.
Oh, of
right?
course,
like,
yeah.
That room is a lot different than all of the others. Mark Ridley's is a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Detroit House of Comedy is like they have the stadium seating type setup there with a wide stage. So everybody's different and everybody has their own preferences. But that's the place where I spend most of my time anyways because it's right near my house.
Yeah.
So, I've gotten used to it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
again, you kind of learn like the lay of the land, and you could. I mean, I'm sure you probably have some regulars that come watch you out there.
Come watch me?
Yeah.
No, they're not
really?
coming to watch me.
No, what? No following?
Not yet.
Well, welcome to my world. Yeah. No, my only following are my friends and family that will sometimes come to watch me, but. I admittedly haven't been writing a lot of new material, and they're like, Jesus Christ, man. Like,
I specifically don't tell people that I know that I'm performing.
Really?
Nearby. I don't need that kind of pressure.
Oh,
so
I do it all the time.
I prefer to perform in front of strangers, and like I've had people come out and tell me they're coming to my shows,
Yeah.
and that's fine. Mm-hmm. But like I stopped inviting friends a long time ago because that's not why I do it.
Oh, really? Yeah, I mean, I just tell everybody that I do it. Now, let me ask you this: Have you ever told a joke before that's based in reality, and somebody in the audience ends up knowing the person that you're talking about?
Well, actually, the specific thing that came to mind is I do a joke about my mom, and she's heard me do the joke.
Yeah.
But she was at a show that I did in December, and that was the first time I've ever performed that joke in front of her. And it's about how she's telling me that she got a facial that week, and it's like, okay, well, I don't want to hear that, Mom. Because my joke is all about the two different types of facials. So you put it together.
Yeah,
so that was the first time that I ever did that joke in front of my own mom, and she still loved it anyways. So obviously it's not even, that's sort of like, it's not based in reality, but it's reality.
Yeah.
So it's like, so it involves somebody that I know. But yeah, it's always been fine.
Yeah. I actually recently, well, not recently, but a few months ago, I've always said this, I've only got one ex-girlfriend that I will tell jokes about. Because there's a lot of material there, and I went into my whole bit about that, and then after the show, somebody came up to me, and they were like, were you talking about so-and-so? And I'm like, maybe? And it turns out that they knew her, and she's like, oh, it was quite funny, and I'm like, yeah, well, sorry that,
I don't know, I think there's some understanding also.
Exactly.
Everything we're saying is, we're elaborating a little bit for comedic effect, and I think there's some leeway there.
Yeah, there's definitely some hyperbole in there.
Right,
and,
exactly.
And again, like usually, because I tell a lot of self-deprecating jokes, and I'm usually kind of the punchline in the end, but it was just like, wow, like, yeah, she knew who I'm talking about, and it's like, there's no denying it, so, whoops, and then I also have a joke about Bogart's strip club, and the one day the owner's friend was in there as well.
Oh.
Luckily, he loved it.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to get those strippers on. I'm like, I didn't know they existed, pal. Sorry, but...
Yeah, I think most people would actually probably almost enjoy being part of a joke
Yeah.
that way. It's like, oh, that's me! Maybe not.
Yeah, I mean, some people kind of get a little...
But
You know what's weird, though? Speaking of people, like, enjoying shows or whatnot, I've noticed this at the past, like, few of my shows. There will always be somebody who will just sit like this the whole time. They will never laugh and they will never crack a smile. But then after the show, oh, you were so funny, man. You were great. You were hilarious. And then you get people who are cracking up the whole time. And you're like, hey, how was the show? It was okay.
it was okay.
And I'm like, well, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
No,
to me.
everybody's weird that way. I did a show recently in Ann Arbor where, this was on Wednesday night, where basically the whole crowd was very like flatlined the whole night. Not a whole lot of reaction at all. And I was sitting in the back at one point while another comedian was on stage. And there were people back there just sitting like they were laughing at the jokes, but it was like a and it was like almost like they were afraid to laugh out loud because nobody else was. So much of stand-up comedy is that communal nature of like you're feeding off of the energy of each other. And like if everybody else isn't laughing, you don't feel like you can laugh. And I've seen that instance where it's like somebody's sitting like this, and I've noticed this before where it's like the girlfriend is laughing hysterically and the boyfriend's sitting next to her like this.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, oh yeah, I'm not enjoying that she's laughing at some other
Yeah.
guy. And I think that's actually pretty common.
Yeah, this motherfucker's gonna try to take my girl. It's like, well, be funny then, dude.
You're a little insecure, buddy.
Exactly, yeah. But it's funny too, like when you have some comedians who have great crowd work, like they'll pick up on that,
Yeah.
and then it becomes a real.
I'm
fun
not
show.
that kind of comedian. I don't do any kind of crowd work.
Neither do
You-
I.
Yeah,
So the only time I really ever tried to do it, I was successful, and I'm like, okay, this is where I retire. This is it for me. It was a show that I did with Keith Lennart out in Chicago, and like I don't know, like it was a great crowd. They could have laughed at me sneezing, like just they were such a great crowd. I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna try and do a little bit of crowd work. They loved it, and I'm like, I'm gonna quit while I'm ahead. Because the last thing I want to do is start fucking bombing or have somebody in the crowd get one over on me. So I'm gonna take my W and leave it there.
Yeah, I'm the kind of person who's like I'm terrified of them sort of giving me any kind of reaction at all. So even when I ask questions of like the audience, like, all right, have you guys ever heard of this? I immediately like steamroll into the answer before they even have a chance to respond. Like I try to respond a little bit to the energy they give me back, but I just don't like to give them any opportunity to actually talk. So
Yeah, because I mean, it takes away the attention from you.
yeah, exactly. I need all the attention. That's why I do comedy to begin with.
Yes, we are all definitely attention whores, man. Yes, and if we do not get the attention, we will definitely scream. Speaking of scream, that's a terrible segue again.
I felt like you were like working towards that the entire time.
I do. I try and think of a terrible. If you watch the show, you know I have horrible segues into our guests. Our guest coming out right now. The guy he's a big player in the Detroit comedy scene here. He is very involved with the comedy scene. He's a big player at the Detroit House of Comedy. He's also a very big fan of the movie franchise Scream. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome our guest today, Kyle Forsyth. Kyle, get out of here, man.
Yeah, Kyle.
Yeah. You know
Let's get you in here.
I gotta plug in my own mic.
Yeah.
It's a first-class operation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Little rinky dink that we do here. So.
I like how we put you in the middle. When I did this a couple months ago, they had me on the end.
Yeah.
And it was a different setup where it was long ways. The table was a different direction.
I don't like that I had to plug in my own mic in. I feel like you should have had an assistant that just feels me up and does it themselves.
Well, I would have been happy to do it.
You did it for Hacksaw Jim Duggan. You did, yeah. You felt up Hacksaw Jim Duggan, but yeah.
It's impressive. It was a good day.
Yeah.
It was a really good day.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, man, we are very glad to have you on here, man. What's been going on? You got a lot of cool stuff to talk about.
I don't know, man.
Yeah,
Stay
where do we
busy.
start?
Headlining lately. Started headlining this year. That's the big thing.
yeah, man.
Yeah, I think was trying to do more of that. I'm about 9.5 years into doing stand-up now, and I'm at a place now where I've got the act sort of together, and so just trying to get out and put more of those together. And did the first one back in April, or like early April this month, and then got another one in May, another one in August, and I'm just trying to build up to hopefully recording special at the end of this
Oh,
year.
nice.
Right?
Good job.
Yeah.
It's I hate putting that term on it in a weird way. It feels
Really?
like so not special
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, because-
Like,
it's
I'm
a-
like
yeah.
I'm doing it to put it on YouTube and make a bunch of TikToks.
Yeah.
Let's be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah.
Like that's the reality of what I'm doing is
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna caption a bunch of I'm gonna just take everything and cut it into clips and put it on TikTok
Yeah.
and Instagram and YouTube Shorts,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll put the whole special on YouTube and the album out on the streaming platforms. But the reality is, it's mostly for clips. Who's
Yeah.
listening to albums these days?
Yeah.
Not many people are, and if they are, they're listening to the ones they love already.
Mm-hmm.
Like look at the iTunes comedy charts. It's just like John Mulaney, Jim Gaffigan, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
Dane Cook's still up there. Like it's like it's the people who've always been up there. You know,
Yeah.
they're always at the top, and then occasionally a comic will release an album and creep in for 24 hours.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's like,
And
yeah,
it's-
I'm the #1 album.
yeah, then they can put in their
Like,
bio they had
Yeah.
the #1 album on iTunes.
For-
which it's like,
for
yeah,
8
that's
hours.
cool. Yeah, exactly. Which it's like, you know, and it'd be awesome if that even happens. If I could hit a
Yeah.
#1, that'd be fucking crazy to me. Like, I don't
Yeah.
expect that to happen by any stretch of the imagination. The reality is I'm, you know, shooting it to put it all out. I think I'm at a certain place where 9.5 years in, I've accumulated a lot of material now. I started when I was 19, so I'm 28 now. So that's my first 9.5 years of stand-up of, like, finding who I am as a person and finding my voice and, like, finding what I want to talk about. And I think it took me a few years to actually even find that, you know? Like, and so really this is the accumulation of probably, like, 5 years of material is the reality of it.
Yeah.
I mean, and, it's like I'm at a certain place now where I need to get some of this recorded and get it done with and be over with it. Because, again, like, when I started when I was 19, who I am now at 28 has changed. And 28, as I'm starting to even grow more, I'm, like, married now and, like, you know,
Yeah.
in therapy regularly for the past couple of years, you know. It's like, my perspective is starting to change. After the pandemic, like, I mean, it's like, when I started doing stand-up again, once we had to stop doing it and then we could come back again, when I came back, I dropped 15 minutes of material. Some of it, I just didn't feel like that's who I was anymore. And then some of it, I just didn't like the material.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was that funny. So it's a mixture of stuff. So it's like, I feel like I'm still pretty young and still changing in ways and the things I want to talk about. And so I want to get these things out while I still feel good about saying things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
that's a good end of the chapter.
Yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
like when you accumulate that amount, I think that's the natural sort of like what you do next.
Yeah.
Now, are you the kind of person who feels like, okay, once I put it on a recording, like, oh, then I can't really do it anymore?
No.
Because there are, I think I agree with you, right? There's comedians who do that, who like release a special every year, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I can't do any of that old material
Yeah.
anymore.
I think that applies usually more to comedians who have a following already. And their following is going to watch that and then come out and see them almost immediately
Exactly.
after watching that. You know?
Exactly.
So it's like, if they're in that position where their crowd, the same people who are coming out to see them are the same people who are watching their material, then yeah, that's something to be cautious of. It's like, I don't need to burn it all immediately, but some of it I am going to burn immediately. You know,
Yeah,
like
I
there's
think
going to be a
that's
few
normal.
things
Yeah.
where it's like, yeah, that's the reason why I want to put them on wax, you know, is to burn them. And it's
Yeah.
like, then there's other things where it's like, I'll keep doing them, you know, for the time being,
Yeah.
but the goal is to write a
Just
new
keep
hour.
moving.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to write, it's in the future. I mean, I don't know if it'll be the next thing I create, but the goal is to write a one-man show, like more
Oh, yeah,
so,
good.
something more in the veins of like a Berbiglia type thing, where it's like, because I mean, I think you guys have both seen me perform stand-up. My closer, I talk about when I had a seizure while getting a hand job, and it's like
We've
it's
all
a-
been there.
It's a very true story, but in that story, I purposely, like the way I wrote it to evoke not just laughter, but to also like evoke like emote. Like I get genuine reactions where people, like, when I say a certain part of the joke, people go, and like they
Yeah.
gasp.
Yeah.
The crowd audibly gasps, and that's what I'm looking for out of it. You know, it's like I'm getting other emotions out of them than just laughter, and there's something that I really enjoy about that. While I want it to predominantly always be laughter, I do love evoking other emotions, and I want to create something that's a very linear storyline about my life, and that's in a form of a one-man show.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, just visualizing the, and by the way, that girl is always going to be a goddess. Like, she can always say, no matter what you've done, I gave a guy a seizure giving him a hand job. I am that good.
Speaking of, you guys are just, I don't want to take this too off the rails,
Oh,
but
no.
you were talking about, before I was on
Off
here,
the rails is fine.
where you guys were talking about somebody seeing the joke that you have said, or
Oh,
like,
yeah,
said
yeah.
about them. So she messaged me, like, a few years ago or so, after I had started doing stand-up, and I had been doing that joke, And, like, she messaged me and just, like, it was a very pleasant message back and forth.
Yeah.
It wasn't, anything, like, she's in a long committed relationship. She's just like, hope you're doing good in life, because we reconnected on Facebook. I was like, you too, Good to talk to you. I was like, by the way, like, on the topic of me doing stand-up now, I do have a bit that I do about you. And I was like, it's about that, like, very incident. I was like, you remember that one? She's like, yeah, absolutely. And I was like, I just want you to know. I was like, I want you to know I do this bit. I was like, and I sent her the video. And I was like, because I had, like, the video. And, like, I sent it to her. And I was like, just skip to this part. And that's the story. And, originally, I had the story as she was giving me a blowjob, and then she goes, "That's really funny." She goes, and I was like, "If you have anything that you want me to add or take out of there," I was like, "Feel free to let me know." I was like, "I understand it's about you." I was like, "And I just want you to know this is a thing." And like, she was like, no, she's like, honestly, it's pretty funny. The only thing I tell you is it was a hand job, not a blow job that time. So like, I permanently changed the story to hand job. I was like, noted. I'll add that. Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, you had a seizure, so I'm sure some things are.
I didn't remember. It was that story's pretty much based off other people's recollections and what they've told me.
I mean, that is going to be on that woman's gravestone.
It's not.
Like,
no, she has a husband and children.
Doesn't matter.
Those are going to be on her gravestone.
Until she gives her husband a hand job so good he has a seizure, that's going to be on her fucking gravestone right there, because that is like S-tier level sexual fucking action. That is amazing. But yeah, that would be like, as I know some comedians will sometimes like they'll animate their. I think that would be hilarious to see that animated, or to like reenact it. Oh my god!
I mean, I do an act out at the end of the bit. Like the bit ends with a big act out where I just do like a shimmy, like I'm taking my pants off. And honestly, that was added. That was the shimmy and like where I'm pretending to pull my pants off. The big like physical act out at the end. Was courtesy of Alex Bozanovic.
The boss man.
Yeah, you guys will know him. Very funny comic.
Yeah.
I was doing that bit in its early stages when I was like a couple years into stand-up. It's honestly one of the longest bits that I had. One of the bits that I really look forward to burning. Not because I don't like it. I love it. I love that story. It's a very funny story. I've put years and years and years into perfecting it and making it what it is and having the exact timings down, the exact delivery down, the physical act out. Like, it's so perfected at this point where it's annoying. Like, I've like done it too many times and have it down to such a science where it's like, I'm just delivering it, like, and I try not to be an autopilot when I do it.
Yeah.
Like, it's so easy for me with that bit to go into autopilot, but the second I do, it's like the crowd senses it, because like I said, it's like one that evokes other emotions, and if I'm in autopilot, they're not going to feel those emotions.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they can tell when you're just kind of like, like, whatever, here's my stuff. Like, if you get excited about it every single time, almost like you're telling it for the first time, the crowd's going to be a lot more involved.
Yeah, and it's early stage. Bozanovic suggested to me, though, he's like, you should, like, at the end of that joke, he's like, because, like, I was just, like, being like, I was just pretending to, like, pull my pants down, like, oh, no, are you into this? And then he's like, no, you should do, like, a big shimmy, like you're having a seizure and pulling them down. And I was like, oh, okay. And I tried it, and it just worked instantly.
Well, I don't know if you're like me. Like, I've noticed that, like, as my jokes age, right? Like, first they exist only as words on a page, and then I say them out loud, and then I have to sort of like get them in my head so that I can actually live out speaking them. So it makes sense, sort of like that the act out sort of like gets added later. It's almost like adding a tag, right? Like the more you do something, the more you sort of embody the joke, as opposed to just standing there holding the mic.
Yeah, you figure out. I mean, that's. The reality is the only way to figure out if jokes work or to perfect them is to do them on stage. You figure them out. That's how you figure out the delivery, the timings, which punchlines work. It's like when I write any joke, at least these days for the most part, whenever I'm doing a joke, I try and write at least 3 punchlines to that joke. Because chances are at least 1 or 2 of them aren't going to work. Maybe all 3. Honestly, like, maybe all 3 aren't going to work.
Yeah.
But it's like, I try and write at least 3, and when I do it at an open mic, I will throw all 3 out. Where it's like, once the final joke is what it is, usually it's down to just 1 punchline at the end. But it's like, when I'm doing it at an open mic, I'm like, here's the setup, and then this. Or, what about that?
Yeah.
Or what about, and it's like, sometimes, like, you'll just, the 1 punchline just hits, you know, and people can tell you're trying it out, but you get that laughter on the one thing you said, and you're like, all right, now let's get rid of these other 2 and see if it works this way.
I've noticed, like, I'll write the normal punchline first, like the obvious one, and then the dirty punchline, and then the weird one.
Yeah.
And I always gravitate towards the weird one anyways, but that's not always the best one.
That's why it also helps sometimes to write past 3, because, like, your first 3 will be the easy one, the dirty one, and then it'll be the one that's, like, really for you, you know, which is the weird one, you know, where it's, like, it's the one you write for you. For me, that usually becomes a pop culture reference. Like, that's what the third one is for me. Like, where that's my weird one, is it usually gets, like, some niche pop culture reference or something.
Right, and that's not going to be for everybody.
I made, like, an Odd Job from, like, GoldenEye reference in, like, one of my more recent bits that I wrote, and I'm, like, realizing it doesn't work, because people don't know who Odd Job is for the most part.
Odd Job is great.
I can't believe everybody wouldn't get a GoldenEye reference at this point.
Some people definitely do. Some people, like, I see it register with a lot of people, but, like, there's a lot of people where they're like, okay.
You're like, who's
it's also like dark joke, so it's like if you don't get the punchline in a dark joke, it just makes it even weirder already.
I mean, like, but like you were saying, it is crazy when, like, you have a connection to, like, a pop culture reference that you love, and, again, you'll gravitate toward that. Like, I have a joke about the TV show Coach, and it barely gets any laughs. But the few people in the audience who understand it fucking love it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to keep telling it for the Coach fans out there.
It's a very niche joke.
It is. It's a very niche joke. And there's usually some old guy wearing, like, a sports sweatshirt who's like, I'm like, that was for you, sir. Thank you. All you.
I saw somebody make a Bo Derek joke this
Bo
weekend.
Derek joke. Oh, yeah, Bo Derek.
And I was like, wow, that's an old cut.
Yeah. Was it about the movie Orca?
And it hit, but it was interesting. Mike Bonner and Daryl Earls, Downtown Friday nights. They do the show, they've been doing it the last Friday of every month. This one was like the 3rd Friday of the month or whatever. But it's switching to Sundays. It'll be like the last Sunday of the month soon. But they had a comic, Detroit Red. Are you guys familiar with Detroit Red? Yeah, old school Detroit comic. And he just has braids, and, like, he has a bit up top where he's like, you guys were gonna be like, who's this Bo Derek motherfucker? And it's like, and most crowds, I don't think that would hit these days.
Yeah.
But, like, it was Mike Bonner and Daryl Earl's Downtown Friday Nights, which is a predominantly older audience.
Yeah.
And so it fucking hit. And I was like, this is the audience that's gonna hit. I was like, he knows what the audience he's in front of. You know, like. But that's also somebody who's been doing comedy for years, and, like, he sees the audience and is like, I could do this reference here. It's like, it's also about knowing the place you're at sometimes, where it's like, you don't have to drop those jokes, just sometimes you can't always do them.
Yeah.
No, if it works, it can be a 10.
Yeah.
That was a Bo Derek joke.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I've had some. I didn't get it. No, I was like, I was just like, absolutely.
Know your audience.
Hopefully we have some Bo Derek fans that watch. Hopefully the 22 subscribers are fans of Bo Derek. I doubt it. We'll see. Oh man.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was getting back to the recording the album, or actually, like, now that you're headlining shows, and you also book shows. So I want to get your take on what you sort of feel as the difference between a good feature and a headliner, because, like, a feature might have, like, the breadth of material that they could probably do, like, 45 minutes or even an hour. But I do feel like there is a difference, and it might be a little bit hard to sort of, like, it's sort of intangible. What's the difference between a feature and a headliner? Maybe you have any
thoughts? It's really hard to make that leap, honestly. And I think what it comes down to is, can you hold the attention of that audience for a full 45 minutes? If you can hold the attention of that audience for that full amount of time, and you can keep them laughing, or, like, at least keep them engaged for that whole amount of time, then I think you probably have what it takes to be a headliner.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's a lot of comedians who have 45 minutes, but it's like, or they can do 45 minutes, but they don't have 45 minutes.
Yeah, oh,
you know
yeah,
what I
I mean,
mean?
I would put myself in that category.
Yeah,
I've
like-
done 45, but I
Yeah.
shouldn't be doing
There's a lot
45.
of,
Yeah, there's
honestly, that's why the first time I ever did a headline set was about 3 or 4 years ago, I think. I did it up in Traverse City, and I did like 42 minutes or 43 minutes, almost 45, and I listened to the set back, and I was like, I shouldn't be headlining yet.
Yeah.
Like, I was like,
Yeah,
I
and
did
that's,
it,
you
and
know-
like, I realized it and stopped asking. Like, I only asked to headline that one room, because I had some other friends who were like testing out headlining in that room as well. And so I did it, and it didn't go bad. It went well,
Yeah.
but it didn't go as well as I think it should have for a headliner, in my opinion. And so I was like, I need to work on this and build some more material. I was like, because I pulled every joke I had, and that's
had
not
the
what
exact
you
same
should be doing.
experience,
Yeah.
Yep.
You should not be grabbing every joke you have.
Yeah.
You should have some stuff on the table, probably,
Yeah.
if you're doing 45. Because the reality also is, if the laughs don't go how you hope they're going to go, that 45 is all of a sudden 35.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, you're trimming a lot off
Yeah.
there if that crowd's not responding to you, and you just got to power through this all of a sudden, you know? It's like, yeah.
Yeah. Like I seriously think we need to make shirts that say, just because you can do 45 doesn't mean you have 45. Because
Yeah.
again, there is a
Yeah.
big difference. I've seen people go up and have a lot of dead air, and I'm like, oh man.
Well,
yeah.
that's really when they resort to we got any birthdays in the audience or whatever. It's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
I've run out of stuff and
Yeah.
I've still got a little bit of time left.
Yeah.
And,
How about
you know,
that local sports team? Yeah. Fucking-
How long you guys been dating?
yeah. What do you do for a living? What do you do for a living? Yeah.
Where'd you guys
It's
meet?
great when you like see them like bouncing from one to another. Like they're like, "What do you
Yeah.
do for a living?" It's like construction. Cool. What do you do for a living?
Yeah.
Like, and then he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, and then the next guy's like, "Oh, I work at a coffee shop." Cool. So what do you do for a living?
Yeah.
Like they're just like not really doing crowd work,
Yeah.
just kind of talking to people.
It-
Like
it
and you're like,
reminds me
"What are
of-
you doing here? Like you're just filling time."
Did you ever watch that show? I forget the name of the show, but it was that guy John Edwards who was like a ghost. Like,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And all he would do in reality is go talk to like 100 people for 6 hours and be like, so I'm getting a read from someone who died of cancer, and he just kind of like tries to fucking like you
You know,
know.
like you ask enough questions enough
Yeah.
times, you're gonna get somebody.
Exactly, and like when you see him doing that, you're like, oh my god, just wrap it up, man, because yeah, you're eating up stage time and no
Yeah.
one's laughing.
I mean, good crowd work is essentially the same thing as being a psychic.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
No, it's
It's
very true.
essentially the same thing,
Yeah.
where you're just reading somebody and going like, I sense that something happened bad to you recently. Like your vibe is giving me that, except you're using words like vibe and stuff, and psychics
Yeah.
don't use that. You know,
Yeah.
it's just the wording for it. You're doing the same thing, really, where you're like trying to sense things off of the way that, off the energy they're giving you or the things they're saying to you. And it's the same shit. It's psychology at the end of the day.
Yeah.
In my opinion, don't. Okay. My wife would
Just talking
disagree.
straight.
My
Yeah.
wife would disagree. I think it's the same thing.
No, it's very true, and I like I said, I can't do crowd work. I did it one time, it went well, and I stopped from there. So I am not a crowd work guy. I know that.
I'm in awe of people who can do it well, but I don't think there's all that many people who can do it well.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Most of them just use it sort of as what we're talking
Yeah.
about, just filler.
Now,
I can do it okay, and I think it's fun to do it at open mics sometimes. Like I will burn my set at the House of Comedy open mic, just doing crowd work sometimes and
Yeah.
working on it because it's fun to me and it's
Yeah.
low stakes for me. But it's like, you know, it's one of those things where I like working on the skill, and I think it's a fun thing, and I think I'm okay at it. I like not trying to sound arrogant. Like I know people who are really, really good at it, and I don't think I'm at their level. But
But they work at it.
But
Yeah.
I also get to watch these people who we get some of the best crowd work comics in the country coming to Detroit House of Comedy, and we've had some of them at this point. And I get to watch these people, get to watch exactly how they do it, and I'm just breaking it down. Like in my head, as a comedy fan and as
Yeah.
somebody who watches so much comedy. I break down comedy at this point. I mean, sometimes I laugh. It's hard for me to laugh at comedy at this point. It's weird. I do, but I don't. And like, but I watch crowd work and I really break it down and I see how are they doing this, where's their head going, and I start predicting it in my head what I think the comedian's going to do. And more often than not, I'm correct. It's because most crowd work is essentially the same skills and the same prediction skills and stuff. And it's like once you see, and also it's like each comic sort of has their own crowd work style too. Like some people, like it's sort of like what you were saying, where it's like I've seen some people there, like what you do, is where their style is asking somebody the question and then like beating them to it before they let them answer, and then they purposely make the funny before they let somebody to answer. Like Nate Jackson will do this. Like if somebody, he'll be like, how long have you guys been together? And they're like, he's like, not, you waited too long. You know, like, it like moves on it and stomps on it essentially, and that's the joke.
Yeah.
But then other people, like, they'll just let them like wait and answer, and then if they take longer to answer, they comment on how long it took them to answer, you know? So it's like there's different approaches to it, and it's, you know, once you sort of see somebody's crowd work style, it becomes easy to predict.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a thing of beauty. Like, I love that the unpredictable, well, maybe if I fucking stop having a stroke here, the unpredictability of crowd work, you know? Like, I'm in awe of guys like Bill Bashart and Keith Lennart who can do amazing crowd work. Like, I love this City Mega. Even, I don't know if you guys remember Adam Herzl.
Yeah.
Fucking Adam was my favorite comedian. Please come back to doing stand-up, Adam, but he was great at crowd work, man.
He used to do stand-up a lot when I first started. Like, when I first started, Adam did a lot of stand-up. He was in stand-up a lot, and he was getting booked on tons of shows, and then he took a real step back from it.
Yeah, and now he's
he's really an improv. Yeah. But it's because improv started taking off and he enjoyed it more, and I get it. You know? It's like, do what you love. You know?
Exactly.
Don't spend time doing the thing you don't enjoy as much.
Exactly. So, but yeah, I loved Adam. He was great, you know.
Bill also gave me I mean, like, not intentionally, I think, but he gave me a great lesson on crowd work, and it was the fact that you could pre-plan crowd work.
Yeah.
Like, that I learned that from watching Bill.
If you see him a few times, it feels fresh every time you see it, but he's sort of doing what we were just talking about, like figuring out that there are formulas to it and that you can sort of still hold on to control of what happens, control the outcome.
Yeah, it was like he brought me to feature for him at Holly Hotel. He was first headliner to ever bring me to feature for him. Shout out Bill. Fantastic. He also got me into Holly Hotel because of that. He asked me, are you doing Holly Hotel? Yeah, and Holly Hotel's not around anymore, but at the time, he was like, have you started featuring at Holly Hotel? I was like, nah, I haven't been able to get in. I didn't know Connie, who ran it at the time. And he was like, you should be working it. I'm going to get you in there. And his way of getting me in there was bringing me to feature for him. And
nice.
Yeah, I was so thankful that it was such a clutch move, and I got to feature from then on and at that club. But that weekend, I saw him do the crowd work 2 nights in a row, same exact way, but insert this person's name here.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, holy shit! Like I had seen him do those bits before too, and but seeing him do it 2 nights in a row with just swapping out the member of the audience, and I was like, oh, you can just do that. I was like, okay, that's fascinating, and I didn't realize it was a thing for some reason that people were like pre-planning crowd work bits like that.
Yeah, because most people aren't seeing it from our perspective, like seeing 2 shows in a row or whatever. So to them, it's always new.
Yeah.
And the people who can figure that out, that's a real skill too. To figure out that even the stuff that it feels spontaneous can be completely scripted.
Yeah. Now, isn't there? What is it with the Holly Hotel and like the headliner gets like the entree and the feature gets the salad? Like, is that true, or is that just like some weird rumor I heard? Have you heard that? What? Seriously?
That's fantastic.
Oh my God, that's fucking horrible.
It's true. It's not around anymore, so yeah.
Well,
I'll say it burned down.
Yeah, probably.
It's true. The headliner got the entree and the feature got the side salad.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that's legend.
Like, because I saw that, like, somebody made a comment on Facebook. I'm like, that cannot be true. Like, that is the most, like, the chintziest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, what if the headliner is a vegetarian?
Honestly, as a feature, and I know many other comics in the area have shared the same sentiment with me, you'd almost rather just not get the salad at all. You know what I mean?
I know,
Like,
yeah.
It feels ruder that they're giving you
Yeah.
the salad.
Yeah.
Like, it feels...
Here's some lettuce.
Yeah, like...
Thanks for performing.
It feels meaner that you're getting the salad. Like, I'd rather them just give the salad and entree to the headliner and
Yeah.
just give me, like, the drinks and be like, yeah, you don't get any food.
Oh
Like,
my gosh.
rather than them
Yeah.
being like, you get a salad. Like, oh, you're going to tease me about the food I could be having? Like,
What if the headliner wants the salad
yeah,
as well?
I don't know.
God, that is so crazy to me.
I
like,
love it. That's fantastic. That's the stuff that, like, I love, like, the road stories from
Yeah.
other comics. I love listening to stuff like that. It's all, because everything's weird,
Yeah,
right? Like,
it's-
you always hear about weird club owners or whatever. that
You guys
treat
want to hear
people-
another fun
Oh,
one?
fuck,
I
yeah,
love
absolutely.
this
Yes,
stuff.
please,
Absolutely.
Another fun
please.
one about clubs. So another fun club story for back in the day. I won't use anybody's name or the old club's name in it either.
We could probably figure it out.
So no, you won't. There was a headliner who came through the House of Comedy at one point, and he was telling me he's done Michigan 2 other times in his life, and the first time he did it, he featured, and it was years ago. And there was an old club that hasn't been open in years and years, hasn't been open since the 90s.
Oh,
And,
okay, yeah, I'm one of them.
So this club, when the owner would go to pay you at the end of the weekend, your weekend was done, you'd sit in his office at his desk, and he would take the gun out of his desk, the pistol, and put it on the table, onto the desk, like pointed towards you, and go, so I was supposed to pay you $300 this weekend, but I think you only gave me $150.
Wow.
Yeah. And he would do this every time. He'd try and negotiate the pay with you, and it's not time or anything like that.
Yeah.
He'd just go, I think your performance was $150. The headliner goes, I go, no. The headliner who I was talking to, he goes, I told him, no, you told me $300. You need to give me $300. And he's like, I think you gave me $150. You know what? I could give you $200. He's like, no, you agreed to $300.
Yeah.
Give me $300. What are you gonna do? Shoot me?
Yeah.
Like, he's like, I just performed here all weekend. Are you gonna shoot me now? Like, and he's like, what are you gonna do? And like, the dude was like, I'll give you $250, and he's like, no, $300.
Yeah,
He's like, and I
yeah.
ended up getting the $300. He's like, but the thing is, he's like, I think about it, and he's like, I know other comics had to
course.
have said, I'll
Yeah.
take the $150.
Yeah, of course.
Just
Don't
because
kill
he
me.
kept doing this. Yeah.
What a fucking psycho,
There was like
man.
one club in Michigan that did this, and then there was like one club that I think he told me in like Minnesota area, maybe, like something like that.
Wow.
There's like, he told me about 2 clubs. They're both Midwest as well. But the one was in Michigan, and like he was like, that's my first experience of being in Michigan. Was the club owner putting the pistol on the table and saying, I think you only gave me $150 this weekend. I was like, that's fucking
Wow.
crazy.
Now,
Like,
that reminds me of the Spider-Man, the movie when like like after he wrestles Macho Man, he goes in and
Oh,
he's,
yeah.
yeah, he's like, the ad said $3,000. He's like, yeah, $3,000 for 3 minutes. And you paid him in 2. So there's some comedian out there who is now Spider-Man because he got fucked on pay.
for sure, at a comedy club in Metro Detroit. Yeah,
That's fucking wild,
because
man.
the fucking mobbed out owner put a pistol on the counter.
And I wonder why it's closed now.
Yeah,
I wonder why.
exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
that guy is in prison. That is insane. Like,
Right? And that was the industry back then.
Yeah.
But it's funny that there was multiple comedy club owners who were doing that at the same time back in the 90s.
wow.
They were probably on the same message
Yeah,
group.
yeah,
in the
yeah.
90s.
Sharing
like,
Yeah.
tips, like, how do you run a
Yeah.
club? It's like, well,
With a
it's
pistol.
always good to have a pistol
Yeah,
on
They
your
all
desk.
were pretty connected at the time, actually. I
Yeah.
remember Roger at the Ann Arbor Comedy Showcase used to have a poster in his office, and it had the phone numbers for all the comedy clubs in the country. And it was like, and it had like, it was a map of the U.S., and it had like little stars where
Wow.
each comedy club is in the country, and a list of each of the comedy club's phone numbers along the side. And he had it in his office way past the years that it was actually a valid map. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it was just sort of like a piece of history, I think, at that point, by the point when I saw it. Like, but it was still a really cool little artifact that I wish that I had.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
sure
no,
he
that's
has
great.
it at home now
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's not in the office there anymore. And he's not quite around there as much anymore, as you guys
Right.
probably know.
Yeah.
But it was a cool thing, and I remember seeing it and being like, oh, that's how connected the comedy
Yeah.
club industry was at the time. Like, and that's when it first registered to me, like, how connected these comedy clubs actually are, is when I saw, like, that little map, basically.
Yeah. Well, I think that was back in the day when, like, a reference was really important. Like, everybody didn't have a clip necessarily, or if they did, it was like a a literal VHS cassette that you'd have to send out to random clubs.
And you got to think these comedy club managers were also trying to get numbers from each other.
Yeah.
Like that determined whether they wanted to bring that comic into
Right.
the club, because they still do that to this day. Now it's just through email, or the agents tell like the comedy club, or like the comedy club's like, oh, the agents usually communicate it to the bookers or something now, like where they're doing these numbers in these territories or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's more commonly shared information in that way, but it's more internet based now. It's
Yeah.
very easy to keep track of numbers in that way now. Back then it was very manual, it wasn't as computer based, and so I think that's probably a big part of it. They're calling each other, being like, who should we be booking here?
Yeah, well, I mean, all of us are bookers, and I'm sure, we've all reached out to other bookers, like, hey, which comedians are bringing crowds in, which people are walking the crowds out, like, who we don't really want to have on the show, and yeah, there's still that connection, but it's so much easier to shoot a Facebook message or just, like, hop on a forum to see, so.
Especially, or when somebody uses somebody as a reference, and then you're like, hey, this person, I don't know this comic they submitted, but they used your name. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that type of thing, and it's like some references are more worth checking into than others. Yeah, sometimes they're like, these are my references, and you're like, I don't know them either.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I don't know
wow.
your references. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like, so I don't know what you want me to do with that. It's also like a
How much do you rely on social media numbers when it comes to booking? Because you're
I don't
booking like
book
real
headliners.
You don't book headliners.
I don't book
Okay.
headliners.
Do
No.
you get people using that kind of information for you to like even get up on like 313 or like?
I have when we booked headliners in the past for 313 Comedy
Yeah.
when I was in the. And I guess I do use it for the comedy festival because I help book
Sure.
headliners for that as well. So I do use social media numbers for sure. Also, I use them to gauge week to week what the audience is like probably gonna be like,
Yeah.
or like when when we have a new headliner who gets booked at the club and I don't know who they are, which happens more often than you'd be surprised. It's like there's a lot of headliners.
there's a lot of
out there.
headliners.
And these days, most of them are blowing up from social media. That's the reality of it. Like, nobody's really making it off of TV anymore. Like, it happens very rarely. Like, the only real recent comedian that I know of, and I'm going to blank on her name right now, so I feel like a shitbag, but you guys will probably know who I'm talking about.
Hopefully.
She's been around for years, been doing stand-up for years, but she just blew up recently and off of TV. It's the redhead woman from Abbott Elementary. Do you guys watch Abbott Elementary
no.
at all?
Daryl, any
Do
idea?
you watch it? No? Okay. I think her first name's like Mary something, but she's on the TV show Abbott Elementary. I'm sure you guys have heard of the TV show, though, right? It's like really big right now. It's in its second season. It got nominated for like Emmys and stuff. I think it won. So
Yeah.
very funny TV show. Check it out. I highly recommend it if you like workplace sitcoms, in the vein of like The Office or Parks and Rec and
I've heard
stuff.
that comparison.
But it's very original. It doesn't feel like those ones. It's just shot similarly, the characters, I think like in The Office, Parks and Rec and Superstore, they all sort of feel like copy paste character templates.
Yeah.
While they all work and they're all still funny and I love all three of those, they all feel like copy paste character templates in workplace sitcoms. Abbott Elementary doesn't feel like the same copy paste character templates, but it feels like a workplace sitcom that's similar to those, but it feels original. It's interesting. Sorry, I'm going on an Abbott Elementary tangent.
No,
I really, really love the show. I don't like a lot of TV show sitcoms.
I'm the same way.
There's a lot of.
Yeah.
I'm a big sitcom person. It's one of the things that really got me deep into comedy before I started doing stand-up. I was in college for screenwriting. Like, I was going to community college for screenwriting and realized that degree was worth nothing. But that's like what I was in for, and it's because I loved sitcoms and like raunchy comedies like Judd Apatow shit and stuff, and that's what I wanted to create. And so like I watch sitcoms a lot. I watch anyone that's good or bad. And if it's bad, I'm very judgmental. Don't watch Animal Control. It's not very good. It's very mediocre. I liked it at first. It's
I
not
made
good.
it through the the pilot and the second episode is like, okay, we'll come back. We'll
it
try it
needs
again.
some work, and I think maybe second season will come back.
Yeah,
and
you
have
never
better
know.
define-
Like sometimes it just takes a little while for them to
feels
develop
like
the
Joel
characters.
McHale playing Joel McHale again.
It does, yeah. Well, I think that's what Joel McHale does.
Like that's what I saw. I was like, I feel like he's just playing himself here pretty much.
And that's speaking as somebody who loves Community more than almost every other show. So
it's funny.
What was your favorite sitcom growing up?
Favorite one growing up, I mean, probably The Office. I mean, like, it sounds basic, but, like, I watched it religiously when it was on TV, you know? Like, I recorded it every week, Michael leaving the office. I remember that season when it was happening, like, when he was doing the press junkets, like, because I watched late-night TV as well. I watched all the late-night talk shows and stuff. I would record them and then watch them the next day, like... because I would have school, you know, I was in like high school, and like I would record them at night on like the DVR and then watch them the next day. And I remember him doing all the press and everything for like him leading up to him leaving. It was like a big hit for me as like an Office fan at the time who watched it every single Thursday. That Thursday night NBC lineup, as you probably remember if you're a big Community fan, right?
Yep.
That was a great lineup. It was like Community, The Office, Parks and Rec, right? Or am I? Or is there one other one in there? I feel like they had like one slot that would sort of swap in and out.
I think that was usually the way it was on the Thursday night NBC.
Yeah,
like
or it was Community, Parks and Rec, and then The Office.
Like
I think it was Community, Parks and Rec, then The Office. But it was a great that Thursday night sitcom lineup. That was a prime. Those three, when they were on the same lineup together on NBC. Was amazing.
Yeah.
Just Community, Parks and Rec, and then The Office. That was like the sweet spot of sitcoms for me, honestly. And I think that really informed why I love workplace sitcoms like that so much. Like, wildly, like, I just love them. There's also American Auto that's out right now on NBC, which is pretty good. Catherine Hahn is in it. She plays... It's all, like, based in Detroit. It's, like, about... a car company. It's pretty much mocking GM and like you know, it's pretty much mocking GM and Ford and like mocking the auto industry and making fun of like how they make mistakes and they're trying to cover it up constantly and shit and like
based
how
on
they
reality, of course.
Yeah, like how they like approve shit that should not be approved and then the cars go wrong and then they're like it's user error. Like, it's a lot of making fun of the car industry at large and Catherine Hahn plays the CEO. She's
fantastic.
It's called Payne Motor. Like they're called Payne Motors, like Payne.
Yeah.
And the logo looks sort of like Ford. It's a good show. Check it out. It's on Peacock if you have Peacock. I'd recommend that one. It's kind of fun. I think Catherine Hahn will probably leave after this season, though.
Okay.
Oh,
I
really?
think they're ramping up to get her out, and they'll probably bring in another big name. She's got a lot going on right now, I think.
Yeah.
She's about to record that new Marvel series, Agatha.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, which is also the name of my dog. But we named her after a character from Halloween Town, not from...
I was going to ask
Catherine
it.
Hahn.
Yeah, if it was after... God, why am I blanking on this right now? The Scarlet Witch show.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, that's her character, though. That's
Yeah,
Agatha.
yeah.
No, that's not who we named her
out.
after. We named her after Agatha, or Aggie, from Halloween Town, the Disney Channel original movie.
Now, you're a big fan of horror movies, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's your favorite... Oh, Scream was your favorite horror movie, obviously.
Yeah.
What is it about, like, the slasher genre or Scream that, like, really kind of, like, drew you into that? Because I love...
I do love the slasher genre. You're saying you love what?
I love schlocky horror movies, like creature features, love them. I don't care how bad the effects are, I fucking love them.
I don't know. Creature features never got me quite in the same way some of them do. I think they have to be good, though, for me to, like, get into it. I'm the opposite, where I can't just do any creature feature. It's got to be a really good one with, like, great creepy characters, like a Guillermo del Toro.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
I'm a sucker for pretty much anything Guillermo del Toro. His monsters are just fantastically created and just so interesting every time. But I love slashers because it feels very real. It's the most real horror genre, I think.
Because we have real slashers in the world.
Yeah, I think there's something about that where, like, I like watching a movie that feels like it at least somewhat could be grounded in reality, even if there's, like, certain things in Scream that don't feel grounded in reality, you know? It's like, it feels like at the roots of it, it's grounded in reality, you know, in most of the regards. I think it even fucked me up when, like, in the Halloween Kills, when they were like just shooting Michael Myers. Like, you guys watch that?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
yeah.
like they're just fucking beating him to a pulp,
Yeah.
and then he still gets up and
Yeah.
walks away. And I'm like,
the fucking
I'm like,
Undertaker,
come
yeah.
on, you made
Yeah.
this supernatural now.
Yeah.
Like this isn't what
Yeah.
Halloween was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like I get it, you can't kill Michael Myers, but Jesus Christ, guys.
Yeah,
Like,
well, it's
like-
crazy how far off it went. Like getting into the Halloween movies that came out in the '90s, when they had like the Cult of the Thorn or whatever, and they turned him into like a supernatural demon.
Yeah, it's
and, like at that
ridiculous.
point, it went way too far off the rails. Now, a little bit of trivia for you. I think it was Scream 4. You know, Scream 4, they filmed a scene at the fountain in downtown Plymouth.
Yeah, they also
Yeah.
filmed at a house in Ann Arbor. The final scene was recorded at a house in Northville, and the home is still there, and it looks exactly the same because they just rented out a home, like a mansion in Northville,
Yeah.
and so somebody owns that home. And I've looked at the Zillow. I found it on Zillow, and I
Jesus.
sent it to my wife. It's not available, but I sent it to my wife. And I was like, I want to get rich enough where we could buy this. And then she was like, I don't think I want to live there, even if we have the money to. Like, I was like, why? I was like, we can hang out in the living room where they all got murdered.
Yeah.
I was like, that's awesome. Like, she's like, I don't agree with that.
Oh, we just have to replace the carpet.
Yeah,
It's all cleaned now. Production
Yeah.
cleaned it, you know? They probably put in their own carpet and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like the home, it still all looks the same from the, like the whole
That's
build
really
out and
funny.
everything looks
Yeah.
the same from the movie. And it's like, it's really cool to me that, like, yeah, so they also shot at the downtown scenes were downtown Northville. So, like, they shot in, like, the coffee shop in downtown Northville, which used to be a bookstore, when they were doing the book signing or whatever. They did that in downtown Northville. And then one of the other homes was in, like, near downtown Ann Arbor.
gotcha.
So it was, like, pretty much all shot in Michigan because it was during those big tax breaks.
Yeah, there
Oh,
was
yeah,
there was
yes.
a period there was a whole bunch of Michigan.
Yeah,
That was that big tax
Yeah,
break.
and because they filmed one of the Transformers
They did
scenes.
Batman vs Superman here too.
Yep.
You guys
Oh,
know
that's
Gary
right.
Madera?
Yes.
Comedian Gary Madera. He's in Batman vs Superman.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. If you get, it's funny. He's actually the only Asian guy in a scene filled with Latinos. They had him pretend to be a Latino
Yeah.
guy.
They're like,
You
"Yo,
guys-
pass."
You remember that scene? So you guys have seen the movie,
Yeah,
right?
I've seen it one time.
But you know that scene where like Superman like flies to Mexico or whatever, and then there's like a bunch of like Hispanic people around him, just like all like reaching
okay,
out towards
yeah.
him for some reason.
Yeah.
It was like in the trailer too,
Okay.
like. And like, but there's just like it's a weird, very artsy scene, Zack Snyder scene.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and like they're all like reaching out towards Superman, and if you like just pause the scene, there's like one Asian guy in there.
Yeah.
If you really look at it, like
Gary.
it's like a bunch of Latino people and Gary. And like,
Gary.
they kind of like threw him in the back or whatever, but you can find and like you don't notice because it's such a quick scene. Like he's just like it's fucking funny though. And he told me he's like, yeah, they put me, and he told me he's like they put me in a scene with like a bunch of like Latino people and had me pretend to be Mexican. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah. I was like, oh, it's this scene, and like I immediately knew what he was talking about because
Yeah.
it's the only scene in the movie with a bunch of Latino people. And it's where he flies to Mexico or whatever for some reason, I think. And yeah, it's super funny though. So if you guys ever watch Batman vs Superman again,
I
just
will
pause
now,
it,
yeah.
or I think it's even in the trailer. Maybe check out the trailer
really
and pause
funny.
Yeah.
it and find the scene. Just a bunch of Latino people reaching out towards Superman. I don't know why. Like they're like, and he's just standing there. Like he's standing there, and they're all near him, you know, and just be like, oh, Superman. Like it's weird. I don't know. It's an artsy scene. It doesn't make sense for the movie.
Yeah, I remember there was a guy that I used to work with. His name is Josh Esperanti. Super nice guy. He was trying to be in that movie, but they cut him because he was fucking weird. He is actually the guy. So I don't know if you've seen, or did you guys ever watch Fear Factor?
No.
Okay, well, this won't make any sense, but you can look it up. There was a guy that he was diving for these rings in cow blood, and he freaked out. Was like, motherfucker, and was like punching the cow blood, and like it's this huge, crazy clip. And Joe Rogan talked about it on his podcast. He's like, that's the one guy I was ever truly afraid of. That's the guy. And like, super nice guy was like, hey, do you want to see when I was on Fear Factor? I'm like, yeah. And then I'm watching this, I'm like, dude, we need to fire this guy. Like, he's a fucking psycho. But yeah, like, he was in Batman vs. Superman. He was also in Eloise. But his part got cut again because he's a fucking Looney Tune. So,
Yeah.
And what was his name again?
Josh Esperanti.
Oh, Josh Esperante.
Yes. Yes. Josh Esperanti. He's not, we have 22 subscribers. He's not going to watch this, okay? And if he does, well, fuck it, I don't care.
Shout out Josh.
Shout out to Josh, the
Josh
psycho.
yeah. Josh the psycho, yeah. He's a nice guy, but
He's a nice guy, but a psycho.
yeah. I'm sure most psychos are nice guys. Ted Bundy was a nice guy, right?
That's what they say.
Yeah, exactly. Same with Jeffrey Dahmer. They're all nice guys.
Dude, that's so fascinating. I was talking to somebody the other day. This is another random tangent, but we had Big J at the club last weekend. Not the past one, but the one before. And Big J's done. I was asking him how he got into like opening for metal bands and stuff, and he was telling me. And like the first ones that he really got to tour with was Korn, and then I was talking to Jacob Barr, another local comic, about Korn, and I was explaining to him like how crazy Korn is, and I was like, Jonathan Davis used to own Ted Bundy's car.
Whoa.
Like the
Jeez.
Volkswagen.
Damn.
He owned John Wayne Gacy's pogo costume, a bunch of other serial killer memorabilia, tons of other serial killer memorabilia, and Ted Bundy's car. And there's a video. Do you remember Funkmaster Flex used to have that show on Spike TV where he would go check out people's cars or whatever, essentially? Yeah. I don't know if you remember this. It was a fun show. And you can see the video on YouTube of this segment. Jonathan Davis is on the show, and he's like showing off his cars to Funkmaster Flex, famous hip-hop DJ. And he's just like, here's my Rolls Royce. This is like my BMW that I drive day to day usually.
Yeah.
Here's like my other car. He's like, and then I have one other car out back. I'll come show you. Follow me. And then he takes him, and he's like, and it's just like this old beat up sort of looking Volkswagen, like not even really beat up, just an old Volkswagen. Like he sort of looks at it, he's like, this is Ted Bundy's Volkswagen. This is actually where he had the bodies. Like, like Master Flex is like, oh, that's cool, man. Like he's so fucking uncomfortable by it. And like Jonathan Davis is like, yeah, it's got bad voodoo juju and stuff. He's like, so I don't really drive it. He's like, it just sort of stays here. He's like, I try not to take it anywhere or anything. He's like, it's just got bad vibes in here, man. You know? He's like, but yeah, it's Ted Bundy's, and like it has like one seat in it, and so like there's like the side is open where the passenger side
you can lay him down.
So he's like like right here they would like lay the bodies. And, like, Funkmaster Flex is like, that's wild. Like he doesn't know what to make of it. I don't think that's what he expected going into it. Like he didn't know Ted Bundy's Volkswagen was gonna get broken out on this episode, I think. And like it's fucking funny. Like it's like a 4-minute video worth the watch. Check it out on YouTube. Funkmaster Flex, Jonathan Davis, and he just shows him his cars, and it's so weird.
Mean, isn't that technically evidence?
It was, but it got released and sold at auction, and Jonathan Davis bought it.
Yeah, because I know my...
with that Korn money, guys. All that freak on a leash and falling away from me money, he bought it.
I say a terrible joke, but I won't. I was going to say, so I guess you could say that the car was here to stay.
Yeah, dude, it's what? Yeah,
bad joke. That's why I'm not getting booked. I booked myself.
I get the reference. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a Korn song. Yeah, Here to Stay's a Korn song.
A great Korn song, by the way.
I am fascinated
off
though,
the Untouchables.
Yeah.
Sorry to go off topic. I'm fascinated by the idea of a stand-up comedian opening for Korn. Mm-hmm. Like
he
you
toured
hear
with
that.
them.
I know you hear that a lot though. Like stand-up comics opening for any rock band seems bizarre to me.
Yes,
because I mean,
one
talk
of my
about
dreams.
Really, it sounds like
I've
nightmare
seen it go
for
really
me.
well. I've seen it go really well. I've heard stories of it going really bad.
Yeah.
So I've seen it go really well. There's a comic named Neil Rubenstein.
Oh yeah, I know Neil.
Neil's very cool guy. He toured with Motion City Soundtrack, the band. I almost wore the Motion City Soundtrack shirt today because I'm a big Motion City Soundtrack fan, and they're doing the 10-year anniversary of my favorite album by them. And so Neil was opening for them on that tour, and I happened to be buddies with him. And when he was in town, he told me, he's like, when I'm in town, he's like, I'll be back in town in a couple months on tour with them. And then I was like, dude, I'm a big fan. Like, I was talking to him about him. He's like, I'll get you and your wife on the plus one on the list. It's like he got us in to go see Motion City Soundtrack. He killed it.
Wow.
Like, he did 15 minutes and killed in front of, like, these fucking, like, emo music fans. Like
who,
you know,
who had no idea that they were going to hear comedy.
Yeah, and, like, he did great.
Yeah.
And, like,
Neil's
it was fantastic. It was really awesome to see because you never know how that's going to go. And I saw videos from him doing the rest of the tour that he was posting. Mm-hmm. And, like, it looked like the rest of his sets went pretty well, too, from, like, he was honest when he had, like, a set go bad on that tour, and he'd post about it, you know? Like, he was very honest, which is cool. Like,
he's real down-to-earth, too, so that makes sense.
And, it's really wild. He's a cool dude. So I saw him do that. I know Big J, he told me he got, the way it happened is, like, his manager at the time, he's like, I had a manager for, like, 6 months. This manager, happened to also, he's like, I did like a TV show that lasted for like 1 season where we interviewed some rock bands and stuff, and then the show ended, and there was a dude who managed bands like Seven Dust and stuff, and like some other metal bands, and he wanted to get into trying to manage comedians. He had no experience managing comedians, and he was like, I want to try managing a comedian and see if I could do it. And like, he knew Big J through doing this metal show that they did or whatever, or this rock show, I don't know. and I forget what it was called. It went nowhere, is what Big J told me. Like, it went nowhere. Like, and so he's like, I didn't think anything would ever come of it. He's like, and then the dude managed me for like 6 months. He's like, and I do mean 6 months. Like, I was like, that was really funny. Like, he made it very clear, 6 months. Like, yeah. Like, and I was like, oh yeah. He's like, because all he was getting me was like VFW was opening up for, like, and I think he said for some dude named Greg or something. Like, was it you? Yeah, it was funny. Like, he's like, he was like doing like some fucking like VFW halls and shit. He's like, he was just getting me these shit gigs, and he's like, then all of a sudden one day he calls me and he's like, hey, would you wanna? He's like, Korn's going on tour and they we're thinking about having like a comedian open for them. Would you have any interest in opening for them on tour and like hosting the stage? Mm-hmm. And he was like, fuck yeah, I would. And like they're going on this big tour, and then he's like, he calls me back like 10 or 20 minutes later, and he's like, got you the gig. Also, would you? They're doing a small ballroom tour. Before it was called Ballroom something, I forget, and he's like, which is like 4,000, 5,000 seaters, more intimate shows. Like, that was the way it was labeled.
Intimate with Korn.
4,000, 5,000 seaters, more intimate, because they were doing arenas, and like I think like Pine Knob and shit at the time. You know what I mean? Like they were doing big areas, and like the tour he was gonna go on. The big one that he was gonna be hosting was more like their Family Values tour, if you remember, where like. It was a lot of really big bands. It wasn't their Family Values tour, but the first one he got booked for was like massive. It was like a Pine Knob level tour, you know, almost like an Ozfest or Family Values type shit. And so they're like, you want to go on this 4,000, 5,000 tour with them first before you go on the big tour? And he's like, yeah. And then he's like, I got to do these like smaller shows to warm
5,000.
up. Yeah, he's like, I got to like warm up and sort of like get used to like what I needed to do with their crowds. He's like, and it sort of gave me some warm up shows before I actually hit the big tour. He's like, and then since then things just, he's like, and then I did a couple, he told me that he did a couple of the gatherings of the Juggalos.
Oh,
I did a couple of those. He's like, and then he's like, things just went from there. You know, like it just snowballed, and like he became part of the metal and music community, and he started opening for a lot of bands, and like, you know, he just got integrated after the Korn shit, and so he's opened for a lot of bands and done a lot of like festivals and music festivals and metal festivals.
That's really
and I find
cool,
that
man.
shit fascinating too.
Yeah.
But I've heard him tell stories on podcasts about it going wrong. He even told me one when he was at the gathering. He told me it was Mike Vecchione and Louis J. Gomez were going up before him, and he's like, Louis was the first one to go on stage. The first person who went up was Upchuck the Clown. Are you guys familiar with Upchuck the Clown?
It sounds familiar, but
I'll tell you why it sounds familiar, because his real name's Joel Fragamini.
I knew it! Okay! I was going to mention Joel earlier.
Okay.
Upchuck the Clown.
That's why it sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Toilet seat and all?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. So,
oh my god.
Upchuck went up there,
Wow.
and he told Jay, he's like, I'm gonna do some time, and he's like, he went up there, he's like, and I don't know if he told any jokes. Like, he just went up there, and like, sort of like, you guys ready for comedy? And he's like, I think he went up there, and he's like, are you guys ready for some comedy? And somebody was just like, fuck you! Like, he's like, and then I think he was just like, all right, cool, bring up the first comedian. Like, he's like, it just went bad out of the gate, you know, like, he's like, and then so, he's like, Lewis is about to go up, and I'm like, he goes, and I go to, Big J goes, I go to Lewis, and I go to Lewis, this crowd's wild. I know your instinct is going to be like to go up there and just fucking smoke weed with them or something. Please do your jokes, dude.
Yeah.
Like, we need you to do jokes so the rest of us can do it. He's like, and Lewis goes up there, and within 2 minutes, he's got a gas mask on. A gas mask bong. Like, he's like, then Mike Vecchione goes up next. I'm like, please do jokes. And then, like, Mike Vecchione goes up. He's doing jokes. He's like, it's not going great. He's doing his best. He goes, and then somebody, like, Mike gets, he's like, I give Mike, like, to wrap it up. Like, you could wrap it up. You got 5 minutes. And so he's like, and you know that moment where you get in, you're like, all right, fuck it, whatever. I got this. I got a couple more jokes. He's like, and Mike goes to, like, do, like, some closer, and he's like, and he said, and he's like, I don't remember what he said, but he said something like, I was he's like, I was taking a shower the other day, and then, like, somebody was like, fuck your shower. Like, it was just like something stupid like that. Like, and he's like, and so I threw Mike off. He's like, and then I go up there, and like, so he's like, I finally go up there, and somebody, and he's like, and I immediately out of the gate, he goes, for a rap festival, Big J says this, he's like, for a rap festival, it's a whole lot of white dudes here and not many black people.
Oh,
like,
no.
He's like, and then one black person in clown makeup stands up, and he goes, hey, I'm over here, man. And he goes, it doesn't matter. We all bleed, clown. And Big J goes, I look over at Upchuck on the side of the stage and goes, what the fuck do you want me to do with that? he's like, this guy genuinely just looked at me and said in his heart of hearts that he believes they all bleed clown. He's like, how am I supposed to interact and reason with somebody who feels that they bleed clown?
Oh my fucking Lord, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Well,
That is,
I still stand by that. It sounds like
So
a
it's like,
nightmare situation
yeah,
for me.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like that's what he was describing. He's like, it wasn't great, you know? Like, he's like, it was
I
bad.
bleed clown.
Everybody got yelled like, fuck you at them, or like, fuck your shower.
Yeah.
Or, like, somebody just out of the gate said, we all bleed clown. Like,
that is
God.
and he's like, yeah, so it's like, you know, there's good and there's bad.
Yeah, that sounds like it's pretty far off the spectrum of bad.
That's why I'm like, I think opening for metal bands or like opening for hardcore bands or, you know, even hosting or something sounds fun in theory to me, but I don't know how it would go if I were to actually do it, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
I can tell you how it would
I
go
also-
if I actually did it with my silly dad jokes.
Yeah,
I feel like the reason Big J does well at it though is because he's so good at crowd work and stuff. And, like he's so good with like people and just being 100% himself. And it's like, I feel like a lot of like rock shows and stuff, you kind of got to be a little bit on your toes, you know? Like you can't. Even Neil Rubenstein was a little bit on his toes. He wasn't doing crowd work, but he was sort of on his toes, you know? Like, and I think you also can't pander, which I think a lot of comedians want to do. I also see it when I've done Comic-Con shows. I've done a bunch of Comic-Con shows in the past, like a lot of them. And so those are super fun. They can be super fun. They can also be very defeating because there's a lot going on at Comic-Con. So, like, a comedy show at a Comic-Con is not always people's priority. You know what I mean? Like, they're trying to wait in line to get that autograph, or they want to shop the floor, or they want to go see their favorite voice actors do a panel, you know? Like, comedy's not their priority. And so, like, sometimes I've had really great shows at them, and sometimes I've had rough ones. But you do see a lot of comedians go in there and try and pander, and then the crowds immediately just pull back. Like,
Of course.
I've done
'cause it doesn't
jokes.
feel authentic.
Yeah, I've done jokes in there where I do have, like, I have some nerdy jokes, and it's stuff that I do in front of other crowds, so those jokes did pretty well, because it's not anything that was disingenuous to who I was, and I think the crowd could read that it's also a polished joke, and I didn't write this to do this in front of you guys. I wasn't like, I'm doing a comedy show at a Comic-Con, I should write a nerdy joke about the Avengers, and I was like, no, I've been doing that at open mics. Like,
Otherwise, it feels like Jerry Seinfeld going to do stand-up comedy in front of the high school. That
Oh,
he used to go to.
yeah.
Like, how do you guys feel about homework?
you also gotta be on your toes. Because their whole thing at being at Comic-Cons is like the interaction. That's like a big part of it. The other panels are interactive in a way.
Yeah, you never know when someone's gonna bleed clown. So be on your toes. But no, yeah, I think this has been a fucking great episode, man. Like a lot of great stories. There was guns. There was bleeding clowns.
I feel like most of them aren't even my stories.
But
They're just other
still,
Canadian
no, that's
stories.
fucking hilarious, though, man. No, that's been like that's the kind of shit I love. You know, these good like old road stories, or just like the crazy interactions, man. But yeah, no, this has been a great episode, man. You got anything that you want to plug before we get out of here?
May 31st at Detroit House of Comedy, I have Comics on Fire, sponsored by Hellfire Detroit. All the comedians eat Hellfire Detroit hot sauces. They get progressively hotter. There's 5 of them, and they tell jokes the whole time. It's a very fun time. They try to tell jokes the whole time. It's a lot of riffing, too. It's very funny, though. I'm on stage right next to them with a microphone there, you know, trying to help moderate the thing when things get off the rails, you know. It's a fun time. It's a really fun show. We've done it once before. Yeah, it's really cool. Even people who are good with hot sauces get
I'd imagine. It's
and that sounds amazing. I mean, I'm gonna do my best to try and make it out there because I love seeing people.
It's on my birthday too.
Oh hell yeah!
nice.
So happy early birthday.
May 18th, Trail Point Brewing. Nobody will come to it, but that's fine. It'll just be the locals there. Honestly, there'll be a crowd. It'll be fine. I'm headlining there. Trail Point Brewing out in I don't know where.
Somewhere.
Somewhere Michigan, you know? Like a lot of gigs that we get in Michigan. We're just like, I don't know, it's somewhere in Michigan.
It's down a dirt road,
There'll be people there.
Yeah.
There always is. It's
Yeah.
that bar in that
It's
town.
like they don't have
you know?
anything to do
Yeah,
that night.
That's their only bar. They're there every night.
Yeah.
So they're just happy I'm there for entertainment that night, you know? Those crowds are fucking awesome.
Yeah.
though, I
I've
will
had a
say.
lot of fun on those.
Those are
types
some
of
of the
shows,
best shows. Is the crowds where they're deprived of comedy.
Yep,
Yeah,
like you
absolutely.
show up and they're like, you murder because you
Yeah.
are the only entertainment that
Yep.
they get once
Yeah.
a month.
Well, and they
you
see
know?
your car pull into town. It's like, oh, somebody from out of town
Yeah,
is here.
I walk in and they're like, "You must be the comedian." Like, they know the
Yeah.
second I walk into the bars. They're like, "You must be the comedian." I'm like, "I sure am." Yeah.
It was like that show that Robert Schneider and Pizzuti used to run out in Memphis, Michigan.
Yeah.
I mean, fun room, but they knew when you walked in, I know who you are. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, shit. Yeah.
It's a lot of
Yeah.
these gigs, man,
Yeah.
in northern Michigan.
A lot
Yeah.
of fun, though. How about you, man? What's on the books, Greg?
I got the Comedy Experiment going first Sunday of every
back!
month. The Comedy Experiment is
Yes!
back. We're doing it on Sunday now with just one show a month, first Sunday of every month with headliners. It's like a real headliner show. So we have Tim Finkel coming up first Sunday in May, and then Camilla Bellario is headlining the first Sunday in June.
Sweet, sweet. Sounds very good.
And on those other Sundays, there's 313 Comedy.
Yes, there you go. There you go.
I forgot to plug the other show I run, which is where I'll be tonight. 313 Comedy at Detroit Shipping Company. It's a free comedy show every Sunday. So when you're not at Greg's show on the first Sunday, come to Detroit Shipping Company the other 2 to 3 Sundays in the month.
There you go. And I have got my monthly show at Beerland Brewing Company, monthly show at Rusted Crow Distillery in Dearborn Heights. Just secured a monthly show at Downey Brewing Company in Dearborn. Working on a monthly show at the new Rusted Crow in Belleville. How am I going to do it all? I have no fucking clue, but I promise you I will. Again, thank you guys so much for listening. Please subscribe and like the show. We will see you next episode. Thank you.